Hello and a very good evening. You're now tuned in to the Nightline with me, Razia Ahmad, and let's get right into the headlining news. The Sarawak government will ensure a better inclusive policy in the effort to drive the state's economic growth and benefit its people. At the same time, the government will also assess a better social policy, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic.
What is important is we give emphasis on our unity, and we must have a good policy pan-pandemic 19, meaning our exit policy in terms of economy must be well structured so that we can rebuild our economy after this pandemic.
In a brief interchange during a Chinese New Year open house held online by the Sarawak United People's Party this morning, the Chief Minister was joined by his wife, Dato' Amar Jumaani Tuanku Bujang, in tossing the Yi Sang simultaneously with the other online participants, including SUPP President Dato' Sri Dr. Sim Kui Hian, who is the Housing and Local Government Minister. Abang Johari asserted that under his leadership, he would continue to ensure that the people's health and the economy will be taken care of, with a convergence needed to address COVID-19 and retake the path of sustainable development. For instance, the Sarawak Ku Sayang Special Assistance 5.0 package to assist Sarawakians in facing the challenges arising from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, Abang Johari expressed his gratitude to the Deputy Chief Minister, Dato' Amar Douglas Ugah Ambas, and Minister of Housing and Local Government, Dato' Sri Dr. Sim Kui Hian, as well as the Sarawak State Disaster Management Committee for their untiring efforts in curbing the spread of COVID-19.
Sarawak is given the power in terms of prevention in public health. That is why you notice that our SDMC has the power to decide what is best for Sarawak.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Local Government and Housing, Dr. Sim Kui Hian, reminded the people to remain vigilant in containing and breaking the chain of COVID-19 transmission, even though the Chinese New Year was being celebrated differently this year, in line with the new norms.
He reminded the public to practice lessons learned and remember the reasons for being grateful amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
唯有大家一起配合，才能让疫情尽快结束。这个疫情也让我们学会了珍惜家人，珍惜拥有的一切。不管遇到什么挑战，都要保持坚强、勇敢和正能量。
Dr. Sim said the Sarawak government will be working closely with the Ministry of Health and federal government in the national COVID-19 immunization program.
Starting end of this month, Sarawak government will work very closely with the Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia on vaccinations. Please join the vaccination program because we need 70% of Sarawakians to be vaccinated to have the herd immunity.
Every Lunar New Year, many people would visit each other at relatives and friends' homes, and some devotees would go to the temples to pray for blessings. However, because of the pandemic this year, the temple could only be open on the first day of the Chinese New Year, and only committee members could enter. Although those who wanted to offer prayers might feel a little sad, they understood the good intentions of the government. Their hope was that the pandemic would end as soon as possible, so that everyone could once again feel truly happy.
Sebelum COVID, setiap tahun menjelang Tahun Baru Cina, tempat-tempat seperti Tua Pek Kong Temple, Hyang Tiang Shanti Temple, dan Hong San Si Temple adalah sangat meriah, tetapi suasana pada tahun ini amat berbeza, sunyi dan sepi.
Many people who are not used to it when they see temples without crowds. Tae Yu Siang, the vice chairman of Kuching Fujian Association, told our reporter that he would come to worship in the temple every Chinese New Year without a failure. This year was the first time that he had seen the quiet atmosphere at temples. Although he felt more or less sentimental and helpless, he also understood and respected the SOPs issued by the government. According to the guidelines, in areas where the MCO and CMC MCO were enforced, temples could only be open on the first day of the Chinese New Year, and only 12 committee members were allowed to attend.
First of all, I am very happy the government allowed the committee open for this temple for the committee to walk in, and only for morning 7 to 12 noon. I think this SOP is really good news for the association.
When asked about his New Year resolutions this year, he prayed that the pandemic would end as soon as possible because it had affected the entire country and economy. In the year of the Golden Ox, he hoped people's life would improve and everything would get better. In addition, although the temple was not open to worshippers this year, from observation, some of them would still come to temples, put their hands together and prayed sincerely.
其实这次疫情这样，我们蛮沉重的心情哦。孩子又不能回来团聚，要去拜年也不能够，所以我希望大家还是要保持这个在这个口罩咯，好让疫情有改善，让我们都平安啊，平安了我们就能够团聚了。但是蛮沉重，心情蛮沉重的，孩子没有回来，好伤感的。妈咪真的很想他，真的，妈咪很想他，很想他。
Meanwhile, the situation is in contrast with the Chung family in Kuching. During this time of festive celebration, the sense of longing can only be expressed through technology, by virtual calls and gatherings.
Previously, every year during the Chinese New Year, Chung's daughter, who lives in West Malaysia, never failed to return home to celebrate with the family. However, this year was different due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
今年很特别，因为有病毒的关系，所以呢，小孩子全部不能够回来，就觉得有点失落了。希望明年大家能够回来一起过年。谢谢。
Considering that the celebration will be done in moderation and the most simplest way as compared to the years before, Chung, as the head of the household, expressed his hope that the next year's celebration will resume to normal.
希望明年我的孩子们、孙子们能够回来，一起庆祝新年。
Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin will be the first Malaysian to get vaccinated for COVID-19 when the vaccine arrives in Malaysia at the end of this month. The Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Khairi Jamaluddin, confirmed the matter.
Ya, saya boleh sahkan bahawa Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri adalah orang pertama yang akan menerima vaksin Pfizer ini disebabkan kita nak memberi keyakinan kepada orang ramai. Ya, Tan Sri Perdana Menteri nak bagi keyakinan kepada orang ramai bahawa vaksin ini adalah vaksin yang selamat diguna pakai.
Khairi, who is also the coordinating minister for the National COVID-19 Immunization Program, said the government will begin the program at the end of February, targeting 80% of the country's population to receive the vaccine for free. Answering allegations of Malaysia receiving the COVID-19 vaccine later than other developed countries like Japan, Khairi said this is because Malaysia is more focused on planning an efficient and effective vaccine immunization program. Khairi said Indonesia acquired the Sinovac vaccine early as the country was the testing ground, while Singapore made joint investments with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Because of this, he said both of those nations were given priority by the aforementioned vaccine producers.
Meanwhile, Khairi said Malaysia would only be safe from the COVID-19 pandemic if every Malaysian and non-Malaysian in the country get vaccinated.
Said even though Malaysians will receive the vaccine jabs very soon, it does not mean that they are safe, as Malaysia has 3 million foreigners who could spread the coronavirus.
Kita sendiri tak selamat sebab mungkin mereka boleh merebak ataupun menjangkiti kita dan virus ataupun COVID-19 ini masih lagi boleh merebak di kalangan warga negara asing. Sebab itu saya rasa sangat penting dari segi sains untuk kita melindungi semua orang supaya kita pastikan bahawa semua selamat. Dan satu lagi Syarikawi adalah ini juga adalah keputusan berperi kemanusiaan.
The government was reported to have agreed with the national COVID-19 immunization program that will begin at the end of February, which will involve free vaccine distribution to foreigners residing in Malaysia. Previously, the government targeted as many as 80% of the country's population, or 26.5 million individuals, to be given the vaccine for free in the stages. The first phase, which runs from February till April, will be reserved for 500,000 frontline workers who are directly waging the battles against the pandemic. Phase 2, which runs from April to August, will be reserved for high-risk groups above 60 years old, the disabled, and groups susceptible to comorbid issues such as heart diseases, obesity, diabetes, as well as high blood pressure. Phase 3 will cater to adult 18 years and above, beginning this May until February next year.
The special meeting of the Muzakarah Committee of the National Council on Islamic Religious Affairs will discuss the guidelines for getting vaccinated during the month of Ramadan for Muslims.
Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Religious Affairs, Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri, said the guidelines will be announced after an in-depth discussion with all parties at the meeting to be held next Tuesday or Wednesday. Meanwhile, Zulkifli had conveyed his readiness to be among the first to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. On February 4th, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said the government will start the national COVID-19 immunization program beginning at the end of this month, with the government targeting 80% of the country's population, or 26.5 million individuals, receiving the vaccine, which are to be given free in 3 phases.
Welcome back. Ties between Malaysia and Japan was further enhanced with the presentation of 21,200 personal protective equipment, or PPE, for local frontliners through the National Disaster Management Agency, or NADMA.
The Japan International Cooperation Agency presented 653,940 ringgit worth of isolation gowns, coveralls, and 95 masks and gloves to the National Disaster Management Agency in a virtual event yesterday. Japanese ambassador to Malaysia Hiroshi Oka said the presentation symbolized the extensive network that JICA had cultivated through many years of activities in Malaysia. NADMA Director General Dr. Aminuddin Hasim said JICA's contribution would significantly help frontliners carry out their duties on the field. Moreover, JICA and NADMA had been developing cooperation through a technical collaboration project at the Malaysia-Japan International Institute of Technology in the field of disaster risk management.
Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. A quote that best describes the situation of food aid distribution to all the needy located in Cebu Jaya by the Army, following the imposition of the Enhanced Movement Control Order in the area.
The presence of the 9th Infantry Brigade has lessened the burden of relevant agencies in the food supply distribution to almost 6,000 residents. Among the items included rice, sugar, flour, sardines, tea, coffee, cooking oil, biscuits, and instant noodles. Apart from tightening security in the area, which had been declared as a COVID-19 high-risk area, the Army said it was ever ready to assist the State Disaster Management Committee and other relevant agencies in ensuring an effective control of people's movement to curb the spread of COVID-19.
2 more COVID-19 related deaths were recorded in Cebu and Bintulu, respectively. To date, the total number of COVID-19 fatalities in Sarawak stands at 58. The 57th death involved a local 66-year-old woman who was admitted to the Cebu hospital after experiencing difficulty breathing. Her RT-PCR test revealed that she was infected with COVID-19 on February 2nd. The committee added that the woman had a history of comorbidity such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and dyslipidemia. The 58th death involved a local 79-year-old woman who was admitted to Bintulu Hospital after experiencing difficulty breathing. The woman also had a history of comorbidity, such as high blood pressure and diabetes. Meanwhile, as many as 83 new COVID-19 infections were recorded in Sarawak today, bringing the total number of cases to 6,273 to date in the state. Whereas Cebu recorded the highest at 44, Miri 9, Bintulu 7, Baluru 5, Kapit 5, Selangau 4, Samarahan 2, while Lundu and Maradong recorded 1 case each. The total number of active clusters in the state is still at 16. A total of 3,318 new COVID-19 daily cases were reported in the country in the past 24 hours, taking the total number of cases to 258,306. According to Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah, 3,311 of today's cases were local transmissions involving 1,673 Malaysians and 1,638 foreigners, while the remaining 7 were import cases involving 3 Malaysians and 4 foreigners. There are currently 51,579 active cases, while during the same period 17 fatalities involving Malaysians were reported today, taking the death toll to 953 cases. He said there were also 3,505 recoveries today, bringing the total number of recovered cases to 205,774. Dr. Noor Hisham said 258 patients are being treated in intensive care units, with 119 of them intubated. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, party machinery was urged to always be prepared to face any possibilities for the state elections and the general elections. Sarawak Assistant Minister of Youth and Sports, Dato' Snodan Lawan, said just like his own constituency of Balai Ringin, he always reminded his party machinery to prepare for any possibility.
Di kawasan N30 Balai Ringin, memang kita sentiasa siap bersedia untuk untuk menghadapi pilihan raya. Bukan, saya rasa bukan sekarang saja, sebenarnya memang sudah lama juga lah. Yalah. Jadi buat sekali ini kita cuma kata dia buat policing lah, policing memastikan semua jentera itu dalam keadaan baik semua, dan di mana-mana pun kita pastikan mereka sudah memang siap sedia.
Snodan, who is also a Balai Ringin assemblyman, said as a representative of the people, the vision and mission of improving the constituency for the benefit of the people is also crucial in the efforts to advance it.
To develop more atau mengembangkan lebih daripada yang sedia ada. Daripada itu juga dari segi bekalan air, dari segi bekalan elektrik luar bandar, dari segi konektiviti jalan hubung di mana-mana kawasan yang belum dihubung, kita akan sedaya upaya untuk memastikan jalan itu, maksudnya di naik taraf sama ada di naik taraf untuk diperbaiki lebih elok lagi dan lebih baik lagi, banyak lagi perancangan. Jadi setakat ini banyak jugalah perancangan telah dijalankan selama saya menjadi wakil rakyat di kawasan N30 Balai Ringin, tetapi kita tidak berhenti di sana. Banyak lagi, memang ada lagi rancangan-rancangan yang lain yang kita akan kita perhebatkan lagi lah.
The Ministry of Human Resources investigation conducted at the courier company J&T Express's premises in Perak following a violent package distribution incident found that it was triggered by extra workload and issues with the company employees' payments.
The ministry, in a statement today, said that the investigation that there were employees, especially in the delivery department, dissatisfied with the provision of bonuses based on the performance and unilateral changes made in the commission payment structure. Recently, a 15-second viral video showed several employees of the company throwing away customers' parcels, with some of them shouting, believed to be dissatisfied with the management, which was said to be related to salary payment problems. problems. The ministry also said the employer had said that the issue relating to the incident had been resolved and it was due to a misunderstanding, apart from issuing a statement of apology to customers and explaining about the bonus system to the staff.
Welcome back again. A short circuit was believed to have been the cause of a fire that engulfed a wood processing factory in Kemena Road, Bintulu.
Operasi pemadaman dilakukan oleh 18 orang anggota dan juga pegawai kanan, termasuk pegawai kanan daripada pejabat Zon 5 dan Balai Bomba Penyelamat Bintulu dengan menggunakan 2 buah jentera pemadaman disertai 1 EMRS dan 1 water tanker.
Bomba personnel took around 4 hours to fully extinguish the fire at the factory. The fire destroyed 70% of the structure as well as the machines inside the factory. Fortunately, no casualties were reported and the total damages are still under investigation.
A suspect's attempt to escape from the police failed when the car he was in crashed between 2 cars in Kampong Grogo, Bau. Bau District Police Chief Deputy Superintendent Poge Nyaon said the 24-year-old suspect was believed to be involved in drug misuse. Prior to the incident, the operation team stopped the suspect's vehicle for inspection. Minimal force had to be used when the suspect acted aggressively towards operation personnel. However, nothing seemed out of order after inspections were carried out, with the suspect also claiming to not possess any drugs. The suspect was then brought to Bau District Headquarters for further investigation under Section 186 of the Penal Code. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has updated the standard operating procedure guidelines for the sports and recreation sector following the relaxations that have been granted to the sector during the movement control order. Involves 2 general protocols concerning the individual and management aspects, in line with the government's announcement of allowing some in the sports and recreation sector to resume operations effective today. The protocol will also serve as a guideline for teams competing in the Malaysia League, Malaysian Hockey League, and Sepak Takraw League, which were given permission to start training sessions on February 15 through the sports bubble approach. Meanwhile, the ministry was also optimistic in continuing their efforts to reopen the sports and recreation sector in the next phase, in order to allow the sector's ecosystem to resume operation based on SOP stipulated by the National Security Council. The Malaysian Football League was adamant on maintaining the start date of the 2021 Malaysian League competition on the 5th of March in the interest of continued action domestically.
Tarikh ini sebenarnya terpaksa kita utamakan, ya. Maka kerana itu jadual terpaksa kita buat sedemikitu rupa, dan sekiranya untuk dipindah ke depan lagi, maka harapan untuk kita menghabiskan liga amat tipis.
Abdul Ghani added that MFL is committed to finishing the campaign league without reducing the 22 total matches or cancelling any other championships in the M-League competition this season, in order to avoid negative effects for sponsorships. Meanwhile, Abdul Ghani said MFL, in cooperation with the National Sports Council, has explained the stipulated standard operating procedures of camp quarantine and home quarantine to every team's representative through an online meeting on Wednesday. Well, that's all news updates for today. As always, thank you for tuning in. I am Razi Ahmad, wishing you a happy Chinese New Year and a very good night. We'll see you soon.